Do you find yourself reacting to every single thing that you encounter? Say, for instance, you're at the store, somebody looks at you the wrong way, and you already have a reaction. Your heart starts to beat. You're thinking of all these things in your mind of what it could be, why they're looking at you a certain way. And this kind of narrative keeps showing up in your life. Everything that comes to you, you just feel like you're reacting instead of responding. Well, I'm going to be explaining the pause with you today, and it's a mindfulness technique that I'd like to share. Rock talks about this concept in her book called Radical Acceptance, and I'm going to read a little passage to you of how she describes the pause. In a pause, we simply discontinue whatever we are doing and become wholeheartedly present, attentive, and often physically still. And so today I'm going to be describing to you the pause and how it can be so impactful on your life. So you can go from reacting to certain circumstances in your life to actually deliberately and mindfully pausing and really responding in a way that resonates with your higher self. So the reason why I feel like this is such an important topic, I think it can be really exhausting to live your life in a reactive state. Maybe it's something that you deal with often, potentially it's through anxiety, or you're angry all the time, or you just have high emotions towards everything. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think emotions in general are a bad thing. We're meant to feel our emotions, we're humans, and we have these emotions for a reason. So I think the most important thing is allowing ourselves to really feel them and notice them in our body. And a little disclaimer, this technique and specific kind of tool is reserved for non-emergency circumstances. Of course, there's going to be circumstances in your life that you need to react quickly. You need to respond with emotion so that you can protect yourself or potentially others. So this particular situation is related to emotions that you feel like you have a strong reaction towards, and maybe potentially it is just a smaller thing that shows up in your life. So someone looking at you a certain way, and then your mind starts to go in all these directions. Someone cutting you off, getting in a disagreement with a coworker, somebody that specifically triggers you in your life. I'm talking about those situations. It can also be helpful for any emotion that you feel, any specific reactive tendency that you notice that you have in your day-to-day life. I wanted to break it down into 4 steps. So the first step is to pause. So if you're in a situation where you can leave the situation or even use the restroom, if you're in a public area, this technique should not be done while you're driving. It can be done after the fact. The second step would be to breathe. So really taking a few cleansing deep breaths in and out of the nose, maybe even taking an audible exhalation out of the mouth, and just filling up your belly with breath and starting to kind of regulate the nervous system through the breath. The third step is to feel, noticing sensation in the body, feeling where you notice these emotions. So if it's anxiety in particular, noticing the heart start to race, maybe noticing the palms start to sweat, anything like that. We're just noticing sensation, and without necessarily describing or adding to the thought process of our feelings, we're essentially just observing sensation. So noticing, and even sometimes it feels good to label, my heart is beating, my palms are sweaty, my face is hot, right? So certain things like that, we kind of start to notice in our body. And this is kind of like a mindfulness technique that we can use in most situations. And then the fourth step would be to reflect. So really, after kind of having that moment of reactivity and you're pausing for a moment, breathing through it, noticing sensation, after the fact, after you maybe open the eyes and get through the meditation, you just start to reflect. You notice why you reacted a certain type of way to the specific stimuli, or noticing, what triggered that specific reaction or emotion. I'm going to give you a pretty broad example that may be helpful for you, and then towards the end of the video we will go through a meditation that you can use and come back to time and time again when you want to kind of observe it. And ultimately this pause can be done throughout your day. It can be done at nighttime, it can be done during the fact of a reactive moment in your life, but if that's not helpful, you can even kind of play back that scenario in your mind and go through this meditation as well. So let me take you through an example. Say you're at work, you get into a disagreement with one of your coworkers. Maybe this is someone that you disagree with often, and there's high emotions on both ends. Now, if it's an appropriate time, you can ask to step away from the situation. Maybe this would be a good time to use the restroom. Now, that is the pause portion. The second step would be to breathe. So if you find yourself, you're able to step away from the situation, you can close the eyes, you can take a few full deep breaths. Third step would be to feel. So as you start to regulate the nervous system with the breath, you start to notice in your body the sensations. So you're in the bathroom, at work, noticing what sensations are coming up, maybe even potentially describing the feeling that you're noticing in your body. So my palms are sweaty, my heart is beating, my face is hot. I notice a kind of tingliness sensation in my throat, and you start to notice the sensations in your body, and maybe you particularly pin it to, in this moment, I'm feeling these sensations and anger is coming up. Anger is showing up. Once you notice how you feel in your body, it becomes easier to separate yourselves from the situation. You're able to look at a particular emotion that's showing up for you as sensation and just notice how it feels and really feeling it. So we're not suppressing our feelings here by any means. We don't want to suppress our feelings because ultimately I believe that we'll have to feel them at some point in our life. After that, you start to feel, you notice, and with that deep breath, we start to tell ourselves that we are in a safe spot. So accepting the feelings and sensations that we're feeling and being in a calmer state, even though we still are feeling these emotions, we're still feeling the sensations in our body. The fourth step, once you feel like you've calmed yourself down and you go back to the coworker and continue having the discussion, hopefully by then your nervous system is regulated and you can have a more productive conversation without reacting, yelling, or even saying things that you don't particularly mean. And this can be true for any emotion that you feel. And of course, the final step would be to reflect. So maybe you get home, you journal a little bit about your experience, feeling that pause. What did it feel like? What sensations were you feeling? What was coming up for you? Were you allowing yourself to completely feel the emotions? Reflecting on those situations by journaling or even talking about it with a friend or family member or spouse can kind of help us look at the situation in a different way. Reflection really is different because we're trying to notice a pattern in our behavior that we hopefully want to change and hopefully want to observe to become a little bit more mindful and better in the next situation that we may find ourselves in. And I think this pause can be something that we can even do without being in a reactive state. Like I mentioned before, it can be done right then and there in an appropriate situation, of course. Or we can also start to cultivate the pause even when we're not feeling reactive. And it can be something that we allow ourselves to really just feel and notice the sensations in our body without having strong reactions towards that ends up being a full-blown emotional experience for us. So now I'll be guiding you through a meditation that you can use, again, in a situation that feels safe for you. So once we remove ourselves from that situation in a safe spot, we'll start to close our eyes down and taking a full breath in through the nose and letting the breath go. Nice full breath in and let it go. And starting to notice sensation in the body. Noticing where you're feeling any sensation. Maybe it's the heart beating, the warmth in the face, shaking or trembling, and simply noticing sensation. Maybe we label the sensation simply as my heart is beating. My fingers are shaking. My face is warm. Noticing sensation. And doing your best to not push away the sensation, simply just noticing. Let the sensation come and go as it pleases, without bringing it closer or pushing it away. Noticing as the sensation starts to change and evolve. Noticing that it feels safe to feel your feelings. Maybe quietly telling yourself, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And we'll take a nice full breath in. And as you exhale, open the eyes. So maybe this meditation didn't change your emotions or your sensations that you notice in your body, but allows you a moment of reflection, of pause to feel, and to hopefully change your reaction to situations in a more calm and mindful way. And like I mentioned before, this can be done at any point in the day, even when you're not feeling strong emotions or sensations. So I hope this video helped in any way. And if you're curious, the book that I had mentioned before, it is The Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. Really great book. She is a Buddhist and mindfulness teacher and also has her PhD. I hope this tool is helpful for you in any way, and if it helped you, please leave a comment down below and hit the subscribe button if you're interested in learning more about yoga, mindfulness, breath. Any of those things interest you, I'd love to see you next time. Thank you so much. Namaste.